Technology podcast. We're going to take a look at what this week holds for Bitcoin and Ethereum price. But please always feel welcome to check out the Shining Bull website, where I have all kinds of offerings for all suns, from a trading signal service and portfolio reports to Vedic astrocartography, a partners reading, a one-question service, as well as several books and book bundles. I have bundled books together to make them more affordable, and I've also wildly reduced the price of my trading signals, and then also made bundles with the books and the trading signals, which is quite nice. And then if, however, nothing on my site is within your price range, then no worries, just simply follow me on Twitter and hit the notifications bell, as I give a lot of free information on my Twitter and on this very podcast. Okay, so now let's look at the week in BTC and Ether price. I, as the astrologer, live in Newfoundland, so all of this is in Newfoundland time. And Newfoundland time is a unique time zone in the world, so look for it. Now, let's get started. So on Sunday, the 28th, I'm forecasting the initiation of a downward correction across markets as Moon trines Mercury. However, please keep in mind that currently there is more upward energy being created by the major movements in the sky, which I detail in the yearly prediction books. So it's important to understand the bigger movement that's happening. So this is, I'm talking about correction, downward correction on Sunday. Then next, beginning very early on Monday morning, when Sun enters into the Taurus pada of Rohini Nakshatra, I see an upswing initiating, which will run throughout the day. Then Monday night into Tuesday early morning, again Newfoundland time, there is some volatile downward movement due to Moon's transit in relation to Mars in the sky. Then Tuesday is going to be quite volatile. We have both up and down movements, both of which will seem believable, as Moon is transiting in relation to Mars and Sun, and Venus is going to be changing signs. Okay, so then Wednesday midday sees an intense upswing as Moon enters into Libra, where Ketu is in the sky, and where Mercury and Mars, I believe, are going to be located in the Navamsha. Then Thursday and Friday are going to be mixed. On Thursday, the general momentum is up as Moon opposes Jupiter, but there are a few important price drops that will happen on Thursday that are capable of retesting resistance if you're a trader. This is especially due to Sun's transit causing some important political news, and even more so due to Mars hitting the exact degree of Saturn, whom Mars has been aspecting with Mars's 8th drishti. So then Friday midday, a nice upswing will start due to Mercury's transit through Bharini Nakshatra, and then in the evening, ETH will especially benefit when Moon enters into the sign of Scorpio. Saturday beginning in the morning, the upward momentum will become more relaxed when Moon exits trine to Venus in the sky. So that was the weekly forecast for the week ahead for Bitcoin and Ether price. And for my intraday traders, my signal service is the best, and I, as I mentioned, have wildly reduced the prices and created fun bundles, so you can get like deals by buying the books with the signals, which is good because the books give the larger market context, which is also important, obviously, for traders to understand, not just investors. And then, of course, here on this podcast, I'm giving the larger context for the week for the same reason, so everybody can get that. Okay, so now let's talk about two news items from this past week. One is an essay published by Vitalik Buterin on his website, and the other is some interesting news from China. So firstly, regarding Vitalik's essay and the future of Ethereum as I see it. So on Sunday, May 21st, Vitalik Buterin published an article on his website titled "Don't Overload Ethereum's Consensus." And at this moment, when he published it, or actually when he tweeted its publication, Moon had just entered into Gemini, and Jupiter was trining Ethereum. Moon was like a little over 1 degree into Gemini, and Jupiter was transiting Ethereum's natal Venus, and Sun was transiting Vitalik's natal Ketu, opposing Ethereum's Lagna. On this same date, May 21st of the year 2025, so in the future, on the same date, May 21st, but in 2025, Jupiter is going to be transiting where Moon transited when Vitalik tweeted the publication of his article. And Sun will again, of course, on that same date, be opposing Ethereum's Lagna. Now, in the article, Vitalik mentions a very long hypothetical, amongst other things, a long hypothetical example in which in the year 2025, in his example, fascinating, like a new type of price oracle is created to generate real-time ETH USD price value in which validators vote on the price every hour. And remember that validator software on Ethereum are activated as a result of staking ETH. Now, going back to Vitalik's example, then over the years in the example, more currencies are added, such as ETH CNY. But then, almost a decade later in his example, hypothetical, just like an imagined example, Brazil has a CBDC, which splits into two forks due to a political division in the country, one for North Brazil and one for South Brazil. Then due to various socio-political missteps in his example, this results in the hard forking of Ethereum itself. Why? In order that there is only one ETH Brazilian real currency pair of global consensus. And there's more to his example, but as an astrologer, I see that it's important to note that EigenLayer, the new Ethereum protocol, which is making news and which I see will be central to the future of Ethereum in the coming years, facilitates restaking staked ETH multiple times, including in order to uphold the security of price oracles. Now, in my book, Ethereum by 2026, a long-time Ether price cycle prediction on my website, published previous to Vitalik's article I published my book on May 17th. That was when Moon was actually transiting conjunct Jupiter in the sky. And that was when I published it on my website, and I announced it the same day on my Twitter. I'm not saying that Vitalik read my book. He didn't, but I'm just saying that I published this before, okay? So you know I'm an astrologer, okay? And not just reading his essay, okay? So in my book, I mention, which you can read yourself, I mention the first half of 2025 being a key moment where Ethereum becomes a fundamental element of the new global financial system, and alongside this, EigenLayer becoming profoundly important to the ecosystem. However, in my book, Bitcoin by 2026, a long-term BTC price cycle prediction, I mentioned that when Jupiter enters into Gemini on May 21st, in May, like close to that date, in 2025, so like let's say mid-May. Actually, when Jupiter is transiting that same place, so yes, on May 21st, where Moon transited when Vitalik published his article, but in 2025, a crucial period is going to begin, where governments are trying to reframe Bitcoin's role in the world via regulations. I also mentioned, and that's going to be a very dicey time, I also mentioned in the Ethereum 2026 book something very strange relating to the relationship between Ethereum and national currencies, which will have taken effect before this troublesome period. Lastly, I mentioned that when Jupiter retrogrades back into Gemini at the end of 2025, there is the potential of a very serious problem brought about specifically by eigenlayer. So the point is that this initial ingress of Jupiter into Gemini in May of 2025 is a turning point, which Vitalik's superconsciousness foresaw when he published his recent article. And the reason that he foresaw it at that moment that Jupiter trined Ethereum's natal Venus, ruler of Taurus, where Sun, signifier of political administrators, was transiting in opposition to Ethereum's Lagna, while Moon had just entered into Gemini, where Jupiter is going to be when this troublesome period that I'm talking about is getting started a few years from now, is because it provides a chance, a hope, and a warning that if taken seriously, can avoid the total utter catastrophe that I mention in my book. So what I'm saying is that Jupiter afforded that forethought. Jupiter trining Ethereum's natal Venus. That's why I published the book when I did, and that's why, much more importantly, of course, Vitalik Buterin published his essay, okay? So what I'm saying is, and also Vitalik Buterin's his natal chart, is related in a very special way to Ethereum's, as you can imagine. And he published this article as a result of clairvoyance afforded by the transit of Sun on his natal Ketu, which simultaneously trined his natal Moon. And in his article, he includes many ideas which offer potential solutions to the potential problems which he outlines in the article. And as an astrologer, I'm just an astrologer, but I am an astrologer, and I see that it is of utmost importance that this is taken seriously, but I am sure that it will be, since he published this essay. So next, let's talk about news coming out of China this past week. On Tuesday, May 23rd, a date which I mentioned specifically in my 2023 predictions book for Bitcoin, Chinese Central Television broadcasted a segment about Hong Kong's plans to accept applications from crypto exchanges to operate there. People who are based in Asia and crypto journalists brought this to the crypto world's attention on Twitter and in the media. And this airing happened as Moon was transiting with Venus in Punarvasu Nakshatra, which is quite an optimistic nakshatra indeed. And what crypto people initially found interesting about this was that the Chinese Central Television did not say negative things about crypto during the broadcast, which is unusual, I suppose. And but fitting with Punarvasu's optimism. In the fact that Venus and Jupiter were conjunct there, and Venus had very recently exited the opposition to Bitcoin's natal Rahu, which is in a very optimistic place across from the sign of Gemini where Punarvasu is, and often responsible actually for kind of optimism and idealism related to Bitcoin actually. So anyway, I want to state now, listen to this, that if you have been following my work since my first book, Bitcoin and Astrology, a long time ago, you know that I've done extensive research showing that when Sun transits sidereal Cancer, huge Bitcoin bull runs are facilitated. Just 8 days before Sun enters Cancer this year, on Sunday, July 9th, Sun, again I mentioned, Sun is administrators, politicians, government. Sun is going to transit the place where Venus was in the sky when this broadcast happened in China this past week. A few days later, on Tuesday, July 11th, I see that news related to Hong Kong will start to move the crypto market up in an important way. However, please keep in mind that in my 2023 predictions book, I do mention that although there will be a huge upward momentum caused by Sun's transit in Cancer, this is also a period that where there will be a lot of downward corrections also happening in the market. But still, due to all of this, as an astrologer, I would say that I agree with many of the cryptoverse who were tweeting the crypto universe is what I mean, who were tweeting that this specific news broadcast on Chinese Central Television is indeed a sign that technically markets are already moving up, and a bullish price reversal has technically already initiated. Okay, so that's all for this week. I hope you enjoy this. Can you please make sure to comment, because this is new for me and I could really use your suggestions and your input. And also, if you guys start asking me questions that everybody will benefit from, then that way I can start answering questions as part of this podcast. So let's, well, I would just appreciate it, and I think we'll all benefit, myself included, but also everyone, because if you ask questions that are relevant to most people, then I can look at them, and then more people will get insight. So please do feel free to comment, okay? Thank you so much, and I'll see you next week. Thanks.